Market Prospects, delivering timely information and education to prairie farmers for 30 years. Market Prospects is brought to you by the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Bioresource Policy, Business and Economics, and these sponsors. Log on to marketprospects.usask.ca to view past programs and for information on upcoming programs.
In our Market Prospect segment this week, we take a close look at grain contracts. Joining us in studio is Cheryl Mayer, the Policy Development Director with the Canadian Canola Growers Association. Ms. Mayer, thank you for coming on Farmgate.
Thank you for having me.
Right off the top then, please give us some details on the Canadian Canola Growers Association contract project and related research.
Yeah, well, we started our contracts project back in 2013, and really the impetus behind that was we were hearing from our provincial canola growers associations that farmers had concerns with the grain marketing contracts that they were signing. And it seemed a lot of the concern centered around some of the delivery terms, in that they appeared to be more one-sided in terms of the buyer and not the farmer, and that was one of the major concerns we were hearing. And also the use of two-part contracts was something farmers weren't liking, and some of the language was hard for them to understand. So what we decided to do was start gathering up these contracts so we could have a look for ourselves and really try to pinpoint where we thought this concern was coming from. So we did that over a number of months and then had a look at them, and so we could really understand what was in these contracts. And then coming out of that, what we ended up doing was publishing in a little resource booklet for farmers what we found in these contracts, some of the common elements and some tips for them on what they should be looking for. We published that in a book called Practical Guide to Navigating Grain Contracts, which is available on CCGA's website if anyone is interested in that. And that's really, as I said, a summary of what we found in these contracts.
So what are some of the issues that farmers should be aware of with grain contracts?
I think the main thing is that farmers need to be reading their entire grain contracts. There's some of the research out of U of M back in 2013. There were some surveys of farmers, and it found that only 17% of farmers are reading their entire contract. And somebody has commented to me recently they think that's way too high of a number. And it's really important that farmers read them. I know they are a little bit hard to understand. They're in fine print, and some of the paragraphs are long. But what we found is that there is a wide variety of provisions in these contracts between the grain buyers. So if you aren't reading them, you aren't even necessarily knowing what your obligations are between one buyer or another. And that variability is definitely in those delivery terms, which was the area where farmers had some good concerns about that.
How will new federal legislation, I guess, affect farmers and also level the playing field for farmers?
Right. So Bill 30, which was the Fair Rail for Farmers Act, was passed in this past spring and is effective as of August 1st, the new crop year. And within that bill, it was really aimed at amending the Canada Transportation Act in response to all the problems we had last winter with transportation. But there was a provision in there that amended the Canada Grain Act, which now requires all grain buyers to include a penalty clause within their grain contracts if they aren't able to accept grain from the farmers within an established delivery period. And that was really one of the main concerns farmers had, was that one-sidedness. If a farmer can't deliver at a certain point, there's consequences laid out in these contracts for the farmer, but if the grain company isn't able to accept, there didn't seem to be any consequences. So now that's changed, and they do need to include these penalty clauses within the grain marketing contracts.
So what else can be done to level the playing field?
Well, I think the next step is to increase the transparency around grain marketing contracts. Like I mentioned, there's a wide variety of there's a wide variety of clauses within these grain contracts between grain companies, and that includes in these new penalty provisions. Some are lump sum, some are daily rates, some are monthly, some include interest, some don't. So we'd like to see some improved transparency so farmers can have a look at what these penalty clauses look like, as well as the rest of the terms and conditions of these contracts, and see things like how grain companies post their terms and conditions on their websites. Farmers can have a look at them before they go in to sign the contract, you know, be prepared with some questions, that kind of thing. I think that would really help improve things as well.
And what should be included in the checklist for farmers when they're looking at grain contracts?
Yeah, just, I guess, a quick checklist would be make sure you're reading your contract for sure. That's the number one thing. Ask for clarification on anything you don't understand, and it's absolutely okay to ask for clarification because, as I said, these things are difficult to understand. Make sure you're getting everything in writing. I know verbal commitments are commonplace, but it's okay to say, let's jot this down and put this into the contract, and that should be done. And also make sure you're getting all the pieces of the contract. It's the two-part contracts I mentioned. That's the process where maybe you've got the front page of the contract and the terms and conditions are elsewhere on a different page. Make sure you're asking for those and that you're keeping them together so that you have all the information that you need.
Very valuable information. Thanks for coming on Farmgate again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's Market Prospects. We're back in 2 minutes. Please stay with us.